I grew up working here when I was little in the summers and after school. So really, we're third generation here at the company and fourth generation here in town. It's a group of small communities: Mexico Beach, St. Joe Beach, Port St. Joe, Wheeler Hitchcock. All of these small towns are pretty close in size, and it started out like any other storm where the Weather Channel would talk it up, and they called for mandatory evacuations for half the city. I am in that part that was called for evacuation. I decided to stay with the gas company, and not knowing what was going to happen afterwards, and we eventually decided that for safety to move to one of the areas where my brother lived that was just outside of the evacuation zone. Of course, we didn't know it was going to be as bad as it was, but just at where I rode the storm out, it wasn't too bad. It was a lot of wind, there was a lot of rain and trees falling, and the house we were in was well built, so we never felt in danger there. And after the storm had passed, the trees were all down and everything, and then all of a sudden the surge came in. Once it was out, we decided to try to make it to my parents' house and my house, which were both pretty close. And when we turned the corner where we could actually see the house, we could see straight through it. I mean, the walls were gone to the point that it hadn't set in that it could be that bad until that point. And when I got up to the garage doors to try to work my way in, I stuck my head in. The house was actually full of gas. And so the first thing I had to do was go grab a wrench out of my truck and go shut the gas off to the house. And I'm looking down the street at the rest of the houses. I'm knowing, we've got to get to all these houses and get it shut off. We were very fortunate to have the office completely intact, nothing damaged down here. That helped us get going on everything else. Of course, we had no power. We had 2 generators, just regular portable ones. It started out with just 2 employees that showed up the first day, and it was understandable because everybody was dealing with a mountain of stuff at their own house. And so I don't think we had one employee that wasn't affected by this storm in some way or another. And we had three of us that completely lost our house and all of our belongings. But the main focus, of course, was trying to identify where the most damage was, what we needed to do to make the system safe. When we got word from the sheriff how bad it was at the beaches, houses gone, we knew we had a lot of destruction out there. We had no way of getting out there. And at some point in the discussions with the sheriff's department, they agreed that we should probably just go ahead and shut the entire system down. Less than 3 or 4 hours later, the sheriff's department came back to us. I think the hospital employees made their way to the sheriff's department saying that they needed to be back up right now. And so what we had to do was we had to get to every meter between here and there, which is roughly about, say about 900 meters. And all of the breaks were repaired within 24 hours, and we got the hospital back up and running that night. We had received emails before the storm from TECO and from Florida Public Utilities saying, of course, everybody be safe, let us know if we can help anyway. We had no cell phone service here. We could go out to the courthouse where they had a Verizon booster station out there. And I put a call in to Candy Floyd at TECO and Jeff Householder, and we also sent emails. We sent the messages in hope and left voicemails in hopes that they would get them and send somebody. So it was 2 days after the storm, that would have been on Friday, I believe, that Jeff Householder and Barry Kennedy showed up here to our office. They drove down from, I believe, the Mariana area where they had been looking at their own damage. They made their way down. They brought us a satellite phone and some supplies, which was very unexpected. The next day they had their crew show up. So that their crew, TECO, Florida City Gas, they all came in, right around the same time, right there on that weekend and the Monday following. Jonathan Vreelander with Florida City Gas. He sent, from what we found out later, he sent 2 truck crews, and Jonathan came prepared, knowing he had done this before in their service area. He had been through storms and the damage recovery. And so that really came down to what we started doing was focusing on then the city of Port St. Joe. And by this time, by the time Tico showed up, they were allowed to come through Mexico Beach, and so they got a view of the damage we had out there. They took some pictures of some of our mains that were laid across roads, and so for that, Tico not only had the stuff, the materials in stock, but they also brought a crew over raw construction. And thinking about using some outside help, I reached out to Dale Calhoun with the association because I've heard, and at the conventions, there's always talk of mobile detection units, whether it be on vans or four-wheelers that actually can drive and cover a lot of area very quickly. A few hours later, he called me back and said, I got a hold of Stephen. He said that we needed to sign just a mutual aid agreement in order for them to be able to come down here and help us. And that was really the first time the word mutual aid got used. Mutual aid is something that's very important. And you can see that in the electric companies. They have been utilizing that for many years. Today it is much more important to us when we look at it and we realize that it's something that we need. It's something that I would think anybody would need. The FNGA organization has been working towards a mutual aid agreement for all companies, whether they're investor-owned or whether they are municipalities. They have really put that as a top priority to make something that we all can use together. And with a situation like ours here, having something like that in place, especially before the storm, is just priceless. Now is the time to get it all in place well ahead of any catastrophe. When the time comes and all the cell phone towers are down and there's no way to communicate, you might be able to get an email out or a cell phone call out. We made it for mutual aid, and thank goodness it was answered, and we were helped out. We have a hurricane plan. We were as prepared as we could be. We had emergency contact information, everything written down. So that was huge. You don't think about the mental, just the burden it puts on you to deal with all of this destruction and to live with it every day. And we are so thankful for that help that came in. They say we're going to have a busy storm season this year, so we're already gearing up for that. We're talking with our emergency officials. We're going to be reaching out to these other companies, and hopefully with this mutual aid discussion that we're all having right now, hopefully we will be working on that. One of the things that's coming out of this is that we are going to have something in place. Whether it's signed now or whether it's ready to be signed when needed, we're going to reach out and try to get as many come together as we can so that all options can be on the table. But mutual aid, without it, there's no way we'd be where we are right now. Knowing that somebody out there is actually working on that and sending somebody down to check on you is paramount.